Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the events, news, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am Stephen Conway. With me, as always, Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. We're happy to be here this week, and it's a seminal week for Japanese wrestling, Japanese sports culture. Jeremy, there's nothing else that we could start this show with except the passing of New Japan founder, one of its biggest stars of all time, one of the biggest cultural figures in Japanese combat sports history. I do not exaggerate. The passing of Antonio Inoki. And Jeremy, we found out about this not long after our last show, and we're still kind of figuring out the repercussions of this. This is a major, major cultural figure to pass away, and someone who is inexorably interwoven with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. Everybody who talks about him with a reverence of an importance of just like a sage-like figure that was seminal to all of pro wrestling, not just Japanese pro wrestling. And I don't know if we've really taken in the repercussions of him passing, just the way that people how he'll be treated going forth in New Japan, if there's going to be even more dedications to him, that kind of thing. And just how much time is it really gonna take to go over everything that this guy did? And really letting the concrete set in terms of the impact that this guy in Japan, around the world, in the US, all WWF, WWE, everything. His fingerprints are over everything. And I'm gonna stop right here because I am not an Enoki expert in any way, shape, or form. However, we do have one, and that is you. So I would like to just give you the floor and just kind of soliloquize, use a soliloquy, if you will, and explain to us, in some fashion, how we're gonna talk and cover him going forward.
There is no American equivalent to Antonio Inoki. There is a comparison you could say, well, if he were Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan were the same person, because he was the biggest star and the promoter of New Japan. Even that doesn't quite get it. Say he would also have to have been a UFC pioneer. He would that person would have also had to have been elected to the United States Senate, basically, to be an equivalent to Antonio Inoki. There is no doubt whatsoever that three of the faces on Japanese wrestling Mount Rushmore are Rikidozan, Shohei Baba, and Antonio Inoki. Anyone that says that one of those three doesn't belong on there, you can dismiss what they're saying entirely. And you're not going to find very many of those. Just about everybody knows those three. Fourth gets murkier, right? But he looms really larger than the other two, just because I'm not sure combat sports is where it is right now without Antonio Inoki. Certainly not in Japan. There is a cultural cachet that this man had, and he'd been in poor health for a while and had appeared just in small little video clips, and he looked kind of gaunt. And you could see that he was not as, just robust as he had been and athletic. And then not too long ago, he came out, I believe it was for a charity event, a TV special, and he came out and he was in a wheelchair and he was pushed out and looked very frail. That was kind of a sensation in Japan too, because he was just such this, just athletic symbol of, virility and power and things. So it was a bit disarming for people were a bit taken aback by that. But there were good things and bad things about Inoki, and we're going to get into this in the coming weeks, because it is impossible to cover this man in an hour, let alone in our little 10-15 minute history segments. There's so much. So let's think about this. He and Giant Baba actually debuted on the exact same show. Their very first show was the same night. He was one of the big prospects of the Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance, which was, of course, run and starred by Rikidozan. He met Rikidozan in Brazil, actually. Antonio Inoki was born in Yokohama. His family emigrated to Brazil and when he was 14, and then he met Rikidozan, the Japanese legend, in Brazil, and then went back to Japan to train with him. He and Baba's careers were, of course, inexorably linked. He had a very interesting excursion in the United States that lasted almost 2 years in 1964, 1965, where he ran into some of the biggest names in American wrestling, a lot of whom would become some of the early foreign stars for New Japan. So he was making all these connections. He always had an eye on ownership, even fairly early in his career. And that led to some problems where he, would kind of be the rebel that would break away from JWA and kind of come back. Of course, finally, he founded New Japan in 1972. And of course, we're hyper aware of that because the 50th anniversary celebration has been going on all year. We're going to cover that whole excursion and the people he ran into there. We're going to look at, once he established New Japan Pro Wrestling, how his idea was that pro wrestlers should be thought of as the toughest athletes out there. That's not new. That's something that was a myth that American promoters tried to perpetuate all along. The whole idea of you lose a bar fight, you get fired in Mid-South. That goes all the way to Eddie Graham telling his guys like Hiro Matsuda or Bob Roop to really tear guys up if they came in with the wrong attitude and said, I want to be a pro wrestler. Oh, do you? We're going to break something. The idea that pro wrestlers were the toughest guys in the block was nothing new to pro wrestling. They felt like they had to have that in order to maintain the illusion. Inoki took it a step further. I mean, he started booking himself and sometimes other guys in with some of the biggest real fighters out there. And he would try to work those so that the pro wrestlers would come out on top and look like the toughest guys there is. And a lot of people believed it. There were a lot of people that believed that these fights that Inoki had were real. Some of them ended up being, even though he didn't mean for them to be. We're going to get into some of that. He had varying degrees of success with these worked shoots, where sometimes the work part fell to the side. Sometimes he knew it was going to happen, and sometimes he didn't. And sometimes it turned out all right for him, and sometimes it didn't. It was a wild, wild ride, and I think that added to the mystique, Jeremy. It was so unpredictable. You really didn't know what was going to happen because sometimes he didn't either. And so there's all kinds of that, and how he built a relationship with the WWF. This guy was a WWWF champion for a little while. That reign's not acknowledged in the United States, but he absolutely was. And
I will pause there. They actually did on SmackDown mention that he had a reign that was mired in controversy.
And it was.
Which, you know what? That is more than they've ever done before when it comes to Enoki. And I just had to throw that out there because that was really interesting.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So they have for the first time talked about that a little bit. And the way they did that to protect both Enoki and Backlund, I think is actually very clever. And we'll get into that. And then we're going to get into, how things went through with the 80s and dealing with some of the early instances of big stars jumping back and forth from New Japan and All Japan and the adjustments that had to be made. The feud with the UWFI promotion, which harkens back to when Enoki and Baba left and formed their own companies. Well, some people left Enoki and formed a company that was wildly successful and then had to come back home, and how that was all handled into a red hot barely begins to explain a white hot angle that was. All the way through the 90s through, we're going to end up talking about how Inoki's vision almost bankrupted the company in the end and how he was basically forced out. We're going to get into some of the bad stuff about Enoki too. Wasn't always seen as a trustworthy guy, especially compared to Baba, but that's a pretty high bar. Baba was a guy that lived by the whole idea that my word is my bond. The handshake is as good as the contract. Absolutely. And sometimes, Enoki was a wrestling promoter. It was a little bit more of a wrestling promoter in that sense. So
you're not going over tonight, Junior.
That had some repercussions. So, and then later on his political life. I mean, this guy had a very strong run in politics that went pretty high up the Japanese governmental ladder. So again, to make an equivalent to it in the United States, Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan, a United States senator, and one of the earliest UFCs, Hoist Gracie, would have to be the same guy in some way in order for us to have an equivalent. So just a fascinating guy, a seismic passing in the world of Japanese wrestling. And I know that they did a small ceremony at Royal Quest. He was named, what was it, honorary chairman in perpetuity.
Emeritus, something
emeritus,
like
yeah. Which I guess they were going to do anyway as part of the 50th anniversary. But of course, he passed away before they had a chance to actually do the ceremony. They've been spreading these things out throughout the year. Unfortunately, waited a little too long for that one, as it turns out. And I would imagine that a Declaration of Power, which is going to be the first show in Japan since his passing, there will be something even bigger than what we saw at Royal Quest.
They have a 10-bell salute.
Well, yeah, I'm sure
they're doing the 10-bell salute at the very beginning before anything starts. Yeah. So they're going to honor the passing there. I would imagine there will be more to follow up, but that's typically the way you start, and you do the honor with the 10-bell. Maybe they do something with the main event, given that there's an IWGP championship, something like that. But what do you think? Like, do they do like a flower presentation, that kind of thing? Something in the tradition of like the old days of New Japan?
I would guess so. I would also think that we will probably see some stars from the past. I don't know this, but I would bet a decent amount of money Tatsumi Fujinami will be out there for some of that. Maybe some of the other guys, maybe perhaps Riki Choshu. I don't know. I'm just throwing names out there.
Yeah.
But huge New Japan stars from the past, could perhaps come out there as part of that ceremony. It's similar to what happened when Baba passed. The big All Japan stars were there for that. I could see something like that happening. And then it'd be another thing. We might see more of it at Wrestle Kingdom. At their biggest night, maybe some sort of Enoki tribute there. Again, nothing announced, but it just the way that it was handled. And New Japan and Enoki were on the outs for a while. Like they weren't really talking to each other a whole lot after he was removed after he sold basically and was removed. So it's nice to see that they always acknowledged it. This was never a WWF thing where they pretended somebody didn't exist, but it's nice to see that the tributes are all there, and Bushy Road understands his relevance and importance in it. So I would imagine we're going to be seeing quite a bit of tribute and dedications going to Enoki.
I don't know anything, obviously, but I feel like Okada coming out in like Enoki style gear for his match with Jonah might actually happen. Just like the top main eventer just tributing Enoki by coming out in his style gear. I feel like that's on the level of like respect.
There are some matches that you can look at on YouTube and on Daily Motion. Of course, there's stuff on New Japan World as well. If you're not a New Japan World subscriber, there's things on YouTube you can see. Check out some of these things like the UWFI feud. Look for Maeda, Maeda. Akira Maeda was the guy that broke away and was in UWFI. When he came back, this feud was bonkers. Just listen to the crowd responses anytime these guys are in the ring together. There's a ton of stuff on New Japan World, some matches like with Dick Murdoch, some matches with, I'm trying to think of who, some of the stuff like way back, like Johnny Powers and like him against Karl Gotch and Luthez. And you can just see the charisma that he carried in the ring. He wrestled longer than he was good at it, but that's not unusual in wrestling. He was somebody who was a talented guy. This was not just the promoter putting himself over. He was a star. He was the biggest star they had, and the crowd responded to it. And he was good. I mean, he really was. And of course, we get into the whole thing with the peace thing in North Korea, where two different shows with 150 and 190,000 people in attendance. Now, granted, they were ordered to be there by a psycho ruler, but nevertheless, hey, like that many people saw pro wrestling is just something.
He was a draw.
He was a draw. Yeah, they draw a gun on you if you didn't go. But the the guy's just woven through everything. So yeah.
If there two or three just like moments in Inoki's life that seem to define him more than anything else. I feel like the Muhammad Ali moment, the fight with him, is one of those moments that just seem to transcend wrestling and into pop culture. And you mentioned the piece, his role going into hostile grounds,
North Korea,
to do so. Are there a few other bullet points or thoughts that really just jump out at you as like, this is what made him different than just your other pro wrestler, promoter, superstar, celebrity, politician, fusion? These were the things.
Some of his earlier matches with Tayono Bori in New Japan, where he really established himself as the top guy there in the company. There was you mentioned the Muhammad Ali one's a great one. Bringing in Tatsumi Fujinami. I mean, as a promoter, this is the guy that brought us Tiger Mask, which is what brought us junior heavyweight wrestling. Period. I mean he and Dynamite Kid created what we think of as Japanese junior heavyweight wrestling, which led to United States. There are elements of lucha libre in it too. I'm simplifying a little bit, but there's a lot of people believe there's a direct line from Tiger Mask even to Daniel Bryan, even though Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, all those, that whole smaller guy can be top star. Probably if it ever happened at all, it would have happened a hell of a lot later if it weren't for Enoki realizing what he had in Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama, and pushing him. Same thing with Tatsumi Fujinami, not the biggest guy in the world. He just recognized this guy's a great worker, and I'm going to push the dude. They don't all have to be giants. Opened up professional wrestling to performers who never really would have gotten a strong look as anything other than enhancement talent to make the big guys look tougher. Enoki was a pioneer in that. So I would say Tiger Mask's debut, even though he's not involved in the match. The UWFI feud for sure, just as far as how to do an invasion angle correctly. That's a great one. Because God knows we've seen invasion angles like crazy over the years. This one was done exactly right and led to huge monster. Well, exactly right there, but I mean, it was done very, very well and led to monster.
You stand by it though.
I'll stand by that one. Because the NWO was done correctly for a while, right? It was, and obviously led to blockbuster business. This one was done very well also and was before that, about 12 years before them. So there are all kinds of things like that. And then I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, we'll have it as we come over. He made Vader. I mean, Vader, one of the bigger stars of the 90s, was because Inoki made him, got squashed by Vader. So wasn't always the promoter putting himself over. He also made Fujinami by allowing Fujinami to pin him in a tag team match, which in that day, anybody pinning Inoki's shoulders was a star. He made Fujinami, he made Vader, stuff like that. I would say those are a few, and a lot of that footage is available if you look around New Japan World, YouTube. And of course, if you want to see some train wrecks, go ahead and get the Roland Bach fight. A couple of those shoots that he did right there. The Great Antonio, that one turned into a real one. The Muhammad Ali fight is horrendous, but it's historical. There's all that stuff is available out there, and I encourage people to go through it.
Yeah, man, we're gonna be covering this for a few weeks to come. If anyone has been following us, we did weeks upon weeks upon weeks of G1 stuff where we just touched on different aspects of it. And frankly, expect more of the same of this because that's the kind of coverage that Antonio Inoki kind of commands. Yeah. He's not a pit stop of history. He's basically the lines in which the footstep and the ripple effects of all of his impact has been felt in so many places that in order to do this justice, if we're going to do it the once and we do it right, we have to put in the time. So we're going to put in the time over the next couple weeks so we don't overwhelm everybody all at once. If you want the all at once, there are plenty of podcasts right now doing that. Sure. Also, I would recommend the Justin Nipper and Fumi Saito Write This Down. They did a great series on our Fight Game Media group a while back, and in their current episode, they have links to find all those previous episodes. Those guys, they have an insight that is unmatched when it comes to some of these things, but We're going to put our own special spin on it because, there's plenty of room to talk about Antonio Inoki.
Plenty of it, absolutely. And of course, not part of the Fight Game Network, but Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter, his biographies or obituaries, if you want to call them that. I feel like they're a little bit more than obituaries. They get almost into biography. That's going to be coming out this week, and Dave always does an excellent job with those. So that's worth reading if you really want to dive into the rabbit hole. I will warn you, once you start, difficult to stop. And I was just looking over preparing for this show, Jeremy, and I mentioned it before. You look over here like, oh, that's fascinating, and down the rabbit hole. You go over here and it says, oh, something completely different about Enoki, but that's fascinating. Down that rabbit hole, and you can wander the catacombs of the rabbit holes for a very, very long time with him. But boy, it's worth the journey.
It's going to be, and I am not the most knowledgeable guy on Antonio Inoki, but I am going to be learning a lot more in the near future, and that is by choice. So
okay,
that'll be fun to look forward to. And as we step away from sadness in the past, let's move forward to a little bit more fun and contemporary stuff. We got to talk about Royal Quest.
Yeah, we do. Now we have to talk about it. We can't watch it because New Japan World, for reasons known only to themselves, and I do know, only to themselves, have not seen fit.
I do know the reason, actually.
It's not a good one. To not give their paying customers, one of the bigger shows going on. What's the reason, Joe? Help me out with this.
They were not confident that they could air the product live on Fight with the infrastructure that they had.
Fine.
And so they taped it. And until Chris Charlton and Kevin Kelly get back into Japan for Declaration of Power, it has not been recorded for English commentary.
Is it recorded for Japanese commentary? Is it recorded for anything?
I don't believe it is, actually. But it's not ready for broadcast for that reason. They don't have the commentary track done.
Bloody hell.
And it could drop at any time, but I'm assuming because they're doing the official tribute to Antonio Inoki at Declaration of Power, that for continuity wise, that we may not be seeing this until after Declaration of Power.
Killing me with this stuff.
I
want to see these shows. I want to see these shows.
Our I want it now attitude has hamstrung us once again.
Oh, fine. All right. Yeah. All right. I feel a little bit. I feel a little chastened after that.
Here. So, but it has about this.
Excuse me. It has allowed me to do one thing. We're going to get to that too. Is it allowed me to watch more of the Stardom 5-star Grand Prix than I normally would. So go ahead, Jeremy. Now this is we're tell the folks at home where we are here with this Royal Quest.
It's going to be fun. So I held out trying to find out what happened to Royal Quest until I actually watched the show, and the show never aired. And so we have a show to do. So how do we do this? I know Conway is responsible, and he was going to get the results, and he was going to read this ahead of time. So you know what I got to do? I got to prep the show, and then I got to tell Conway, I don't know what happened in this show, and you're going to tell me as we record. I don't know what happened, guys. I don't know anything. So you're going to get my reaction. We're going to have some hot takes because we don't have any magic to review.
Right.
So we got to make this fun in a different way. And we're going to figure that out. And then after that, we're going to talk about a little bit of Stardom.
We will do that. It's the Royal Quest results. I'm sure these were good matches, and I really want to see these matches, and I am looking forward to seeing them. It's not the most shocking set of results you've ever heard. I think if you have read the tea leaves, you're probably going to get most of these results right, Jeremy, in your head. But let's just go over them. We'll see what happened with Royal Quest. Again, we haven't seen the matches, but here is what happened at Royal Quest on October 1st and 2nd in the Crystal Palace Sports Center. It's very British. It's center with an R-E at the end. So, yes, I feel like I should be doing this with one pinky up. Here we go. So the show began with Gabriel Kidd coming back. It's after a long layoff for Gabriel Kidd, handling some personal issues and things. So, but he defeated Dan Maloney in the first match of the night. We had Ricky Knight Jr. and Michael Oku got the win over the Great Okan and Gideon Gray. So you can imagine who ended up probably taking the palm.
Gideon Gray took the pin.
I'm guessing he did.
I would guess Michael Oku got the pin.
I wish I had that in the results. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell me who pinned who. In a preview of the first match in the IWGP Women's Tournament that took place on night 2, this is night 1. Ava White and Alex Windsor defeated Jazzy Gabbert and Kanji. So that was a tag team match they had to preview the Ava White Jazzy Gabbert match. Followed up by Los Ingobernables de Japón, that being it is a 6-man match. So the 3 were Naito, Sanada, and Hiromu Takahashi. They defeated the Suzuki-gun group, and I'm betting you can figure out who did the job here too. Zack Sabre Jr., El Desperado, Doki. So
I'm gonna go with Doki.
I'm gonna go with Doki on that one. Next up, Kazuchika Okada and Tomohiro Ishii tag team match. They defeated Bad Dude Tito and Zack Knight. I don't like Knight's chances in that one. What do you think?
I don't like his chances either. I think you're right on that one.
Oh, worth noting though, the reason Knight was even in the match, Jonah unable to travel to England for these shows because of the damage from the hurricane.
Oh, I heard about that. Yes.
So Jonah did not appear. These were supposed to be Okada Jonah preview matches for Declaration of Power. Jonah not able to get there due to travel issues with the hurricane. He lives in Florida, so there you go. So he came back from Japan, was in Florida, and then got whopped in the face with a hurricane. The guy goes from a typhoon in Japan to a hurricane in Florida. The guy can't win.
Can't win at all. But protect Jonah at all costs. That's what I say.
No kidding. He probably stood there and held his house up. Is what I'm picturing. Just
they huffed and they puffed, man. They huffed and they puffed. They couldn't blow his house down.
Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tama Tonga, Hikuleo, and Jado coming off that big angle where Hikuleo turned on Jay White and joined up with his family. They defeated the Bullet Club, Jay White, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, and Geto. Once again, I'm guessing Geto took the 3 count on this one, probably to Hikuleo.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one.
Just a guess.
While we're talking about this, I wanted to shout somebody out real quick. Colin Matthew on the last show mentioned Ava White, who we didn't know much about, and that she wrestled for Pro Wrestling Eve in the UK. And I just wanted to thank Colin Matthew, who took a mention on our YouTube page for pointing that out to us. Thank you, Colin.
Yes, we do appreciate that, because that was a new name to us, to be honest. Like I said, there's a lot of great wrestling out there. We haven't been able to get to all of it. Unfortunately, hadn't been able to get to Ava. So I'm very much looking forward to her match with Gabby, and seeing it, rather. The matches happen. I'm looking forward to seeing this woman in action, because she has a good reputation there. Special match, we had a singles match here. Will Ospreay defeated Shota Umino by referee stoppage. So that's
not good for Shooter.
No, it's not.
No,
but
it's not good.
And it also shows that it goes to, we had that debate a few weeks ago as to whether he would be babyface or heel. Sounds like we had asshole Will, the asshole version of Will in this one. So and then the main event, IWGP Tag Team title match, the first defense by FTR, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. They defeated Aussie Open 31 minutes and 59 seconds. They gave this match time to go to breathe. I can't wait to see this one, but of course,
I sure wish I could have seen this.
FTR did get the win. They are still the IWGP Tag Team Champions. I have no doubt in my mind that Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis put on a hell of a show, though. In that.
Do you think that you could put on your shirt called 5-Star FTR before this match and feel confident in wearing it when it's done?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I don't do the stars. But I have a feeling this one was probably great.
From my understanding, I think I heard on a Wrestling Observer that Dax Wheeler and Cash Harwood, felt that this was probably one of their best matches they've ever had.
Think about that for a second. Think of the matches those guys.
They've had a year, and they think this is one of the best matches they've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 31 minutes. A lot of magic can happen in 31 minutes.
And because there aren't any, there's no tag team title match so far between now and the tag team tournament. They might go into either in the tournament, or they might be just facing the winner of the tournament. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty with that stuff. And there's a lot of things that play in with AEW schedules and all that kind of stuff. So, but FTR, it's looking good for them going into the tournament as the tag team champions, but there could be a title defense in there in between. We'll find out. So now night 2, we'll roll into night 2 in the same building. Suzuki-gun, Doki, and El Desperado, they got their win back on Robbie X and Michael Oku in this one. So Doki and Desperado came out 1-1 there. Hiromu Takahashi and Sonata teamed up to defeat the Young Guns, Luke Jacobs and Ethan Allen. So there you have it. After that, first match in the IWGP Women's Title Tournament. So this is the quarterfinals. Jazzy Gabbert defeated Ava White in 10 minutes 34 seconds. Of course, Jazzy has been working in a ton of different promotions over the years. So she is going to face Kairi, the former Kairi Sane, who and Kairi Hojo originally, and now just Kairi. She doesn't need a last name anymore. They will be facing each other in, I believe, October 23rd, I think is the date for the semifinals on that one. So should be fun to watch.
Can you just stop and think about the fact that you just told me that there's a 10-minute women's match on that New Japan show?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
not pre-show, not unfilmed. This is going to be in the middle of a show, a 10-minute women's match. They had the women go 10 minutes in a singles match. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like you can wag your finger and say it should have happened before now in New Japan. But if the floodgates are open, let's do this. Let's have some women's matches on there and let's elevate this.
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? Because we talked a little bit about it with Scott Edwards last week. It's not that Japan is behind the times in women's wrestling; they're ahead of it. Like they have their own full-blown promotions that tour and have long tournaments and fan bases and streaming services and things. And so, but it is a fair point that when you are outside of Japan, it does look weird to have an all men's pro wrestling show. You're like, where are the women? Like why? It is the point that I try to make. It's not that New Japan is sexist, that the women they have their own thing. Like they're a bigger deal in Japan than women's wrestling is here. Although, the women's wrestling here has had some really high moments, really big, some peaks, main evented nights of WrestleMania and things, but there are, full-time touring promotions in Japan. But seeing this come in, it's exciting. It's going to add another dimension to the shows we watch. So
it is really interesting to put it this way, but here's how I'm going to say it. New Japan men's wrestling is capped by the fact that there's only men's wrestling in it nowadays. Even more so than Stardom is capped by it being only women's wrestling. You have a level of success that you can reach because of the way that it's done in Japan. But in order to expand outward with the expectations that the Western, given whatever world that you want to call it outside of Japan, their expectations of wrestling are more than that nowadays. So in order for New Japan to succeed, like working together within the infrastructure of Bushiroad so that Stardom can infiltrate an infrastructure bigger than itself, everybody can win, and I'm feeling really good about it.
And we'll see how this turns out. We're going to talk a little bit more about the other bracket in that tournament there. But next, the semifinals on the one side, which I guess they're calling like the international side, is Jazzy Gabbert and Kairi for the on that semifinal. So moving on from that, we had the United Empire, Will Ospreay, Great O'Khan, Gideon Gray, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis. They defeated Ricky Knight Jr., Shota Umino, FTR, and Gabriel Kidd in a big multi-person match there. Moved on to Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tama Tonga, and Hikuleo getting another win over the Bullet Club. Now this one didn't have Gato in it, so this one had Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, and Jay White. So that's a pretty solid win right there. I mean, anytime Gato's in, that he can kind of protect his Bullet Club guys by taking the fall. This one didn't have that. The Tanahashi, Tama Tonga, Hikuleo over Anderson, Gallows, and White. So that's a bit of a stronger signal that they're really starting to push. We know they're pushing Tama Tonga. We all know that he's getting the title shot. But Hikuleo is they're showing that he is not a man to be trifled with. They're putting this dude over really more than a lot of guys that come back from excursion.
Hikuleo, Gallows, Wrestle Kingdom
might end up happening. Who knows?
If Hikuleo got the pin on Gallows,
I really don't have
but if you think about it, if Hontai got the pin, and you have Gallows who doesn't have a belt, and you have Anderson and Jay White who do. You don't necessarily ever really want to pin Jay White unless you don't have to. So, and Anderson has the belt of the never open weight title. It kind of leaves Gallows. And if Gallows is getting pinned, who's pinning Gallows? And
well,
so, like, Hikuleo.
It's also possible he beat Anderson because remember at the end of the last show there, he was holding up that never open weight title while Tama Tonga was holding up the IWGP title after they laid Bullet Club out. I think his Hikuleo's match at Kingdom might be Anderson for that never title.
It could be beforehand, and then it could be against Gallows.
Yeah,
I am having fun with my current prediction, and it may not come true. But any chance that I could hint at Gallows versus Hikuleo at Wrestle Kingdom, that could be my could be where I hang my hat on.
Okay, fair enough. After that one came a singles match. Kazucho Okada defeated Bad Dude Tito.
Tito.
And then Tomohiro Ishii defeated a name from the past. This is another young lion out on excursion that you just don't hear a lot about because he's been in England and things, but not that he's doing poorly, but it's just not a name that we see on Strong. It's not a name that we see on AEW so far, but he defeated Yota Tsuji. Do you remember Yota?
Yeah, Big Yoda.
Yeah, absolutely. So
big-headed Yoda.
And an interesting thing on this one, Jeremy, 17 minutes, 36 seconds. Ishii took him for a walk. I mean, that was a long match that Ishii
Yoda's a beast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm very interested to see how he's developed. I just haven't been able to see the dude since he's been on excursion. So I'm excited to see Yota Tsuji right there. And the fact that Ishii kind of stretched a little bit and loosened up and said, let's go a little while, kid. You know, that's I love that. I'm anxious to see what he looks like.
Do you know what type of gear Yoda wears over there?
No, I haven't seen it.
I hope he's wearing some long boys. I feel like he'd be a good long boy guy.
Maybe he would.
I don't know. The trunk made him seem like bigger, like just the trunk that he had, but I always felt like he needed more than that. He's a big dude.
It's worked for Khan. Great O'Khan sometimes I think wears the longer one. It should work for him.
Dude, scary dude.
Yeah, and number one contenders match for the U.S. title. So what better way to have a U.S. title number one contenders match than to have a Brit wrestle a Japanese guy in England? And, of course, so that they can face a guy who's also from England for the U.S. title. We'll go with it.
I did find out the result of this one ahead of time because they advertised the follow-up immediately after on Monday morning. But go ahead.
Tetsuya Naito defeated Zack Sabre Jr. in that match. So
surprising.
That is going to bring us Naito versus Will Ospreay. That's what I predicted, though. I figured they would go back to Naito and Ospreay just because first singles meeting between the two came in the semifinals of the G1 Climax tournament, and I figured they would hit it again because it was a pretty damn good match. So let's do it again, this time for the U.S. title.
Let's make it go back again, right?
Yeah. So yeah, some interesting stuff there. Some names there. The Yota Tsuji thing, I'm fired up. I'm happy about that.
There's definitely things that if I hear results of a show, I am not immediately inclined to want to check it out because I found out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the kind of show that's just like, yeah, I'm going to be checking this out. Like if I'm going to invest watching in Raw and SmackDown, and sometimes Rampage, I should be making time for this show. That's basically the way the nuts and bolts go in that one.
Hopefully, before I die of old age, New Japan World will see fit to show it to us. So, still bitter. That's yeah. I am.
Are you Scott Young today?
Jeez. Maybe salty. I am. Maybe I am. It's just I don't know. I'm just frustrated. But
yeah, I'm with you. I looked every day. Every day I would go onto my browser. Like, is it there yet? It's not there yet. Oh, look, Rumble on 44th Street, not Rumble in the Bronx. Still right on the top of it. But no Royal Quest 1, no Royal Quest 2. I would have set up for only Royal Quest 2 at this point. I would have taken one of them, even out of order. Don't care. I would have done it. But
that's right.
Irregardless, it is not up, and I am a patient man. Yes. And hopefully we can talk a little bit more in person about what we thought about the matches we're talking about. the next time we see each other.
There you go. All right. So I am going to bring something up here as we move into our next topic, because I want to make sure I get this right. And sometimes these names get a little tricky for me, but we are going into the 5-star Grand Prix. And I wanted to mention this for Stardom because it had to do with the IWGP Women's Tournament. So similar to the way New Japan handles things, Stardom, of course, isn't going to be announcing matches until after their major tournament, because all these things have repercussions as far as who's getting what title shot and things. So with this tournament, we now know who is going to be part of the IWGP Women's Tournament on the Japanese side. I know that Kairi is Japanese, but she's on the international side of the bracket. So one semifinal is going to have Jazzy Gabbert and Kairi, and that's going to happen on October 23rd. And I am bringing up now the other side because I want to make sure I get this right. Yes. So after the, I'm trying to figure out where to start here, but let's just go over the Grand Prix. So there is a major stars that can't be in this tournament because Julia won the 5-star Grand Prix. Once again, she's a first-time winner. No one's ever won the 5-star Grand Prix twice. Julia won this thing. She announced afterwards that she would be challenging, because win the 5-star Grand Prix, you get to challenge for a title, similar to the G1. She will be challenging Shuri for the red belt, the one of the major titles in Stardom there. So she's going to be challenging for that. That takes those two out of this tournament because they're going to be main eventing that big show right there. And I believe that's going to be taking place very shortly before Wrestle Kingdom, just a little bit before Wrestle Kingdom in Sumo Hall. So who does that leave? Well, that leaves a few major stars that they have put in this tournament. So on the other side, for the IWGP Women's title, Mayu Iwatani will take on Momo Watanabe. So that's a classic babyface heel matchup right there. Momo Watanabe, part of the, as they call it, demonic Oedo Tai group. And Mayu Iwatani is a Stardom legend. She's been there since the very beginning and is a classic babyface. So we got the babyface heel dynamic there going for sure. And then Utami Hayashishita will face Himeka. And actually the first round is October 22nd. I was close. So those two matches will be taking place October 22nd, and that will determine the semifinals, and then whoever will face the winner of Jazzy Gabbert and Kairi. Those semis will be October 23rd. So the 22nd will determine the semifinalists, and so you'll have Jazzy Gabbert and Kairi, and then you'll have the winners of those two matches there, Iwatani and Watanabe. On the other side is Hayashishita and Himeka. Winners of those two on the 23rd, and then we'll go from there, with the finals being at the historic crossover event on November 20th. That's the show that's going to include both New Japan and Stardom wrestlers, including a couple of mixed tags.
So that's where that's a build, essentially, right, between the shows. Okay. Yeah,
so we have that. And there are a couple of things to mention in that crossover event. Julia is going to be on that show. So is Shuri. So, this is something that may be telegraphed, now that I think about it, the 5-star Grand Prix, because Julia and Zack Sabre Jr. are going to be wrestling Shuri and Tom Lawler. So
I was kind of dancing around that the other day.
Yeah. And Scott Edwards mentioned it last week. This felt like Julia's year.
Yes.
And the Shuri match is the only one that really makes sense if she did win it, because they used to be in a faction together. They used to be in Donna Del Mundo together. That's Julia's faction. Well, not all that long ago. I think in early 2021, Shuri broke off, not necessarily in a feud, just kind of, she broke away and formed her own thing, God's Eye. So she has her own faction now. But there's still that rivalry. What's interesting about this matchup and the tag team partners that are involved in it, Shuri has an MMA and combat sports background before getting into pro wrestling. Julia's style is a little more roughhouse and a little more strikes. Like Scott just said, she's a little bit more violent than some of the women in Stardom. So they're on opposite ends. You have Zack Sabre Jr. and Tom Lawler, who, of course, MMA background and that submission style of wrestling. So now that I know a little bit more about Stardom, now that I'm learning a little bit more, this match has some layers there, Jeremy. I think this could be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that if you're looking for fully immersive wrestling angles and storylines, you're going to find it in Stardom. And this is their main event scene right now, and they're investing heavily in making sure that longtime viewers are rewarded. But it also is coming off as incredibly inviting to new viewers, if that makes any sense. Like they're introducing this in a way that, you know, people know who Kyrie is, you know, like, and bringing her kind of in the beginning of this tournament of like, hey, if you're interested, you know, check it out. And so it's very clever that they're putting a lot of people who are recently in the spotlight front and center of this tournament as the kind of appetizer for what Stardom is really about.
And there are some major stars of Stardom in this tournament. Tam Nakano is in this thing. Starlight Kid, Datsupoi, and I'm about to cough, pardon me. But Itami Hayashishita, Maika, you know, these are not, excuse me, sorry about that. These are top stars. And so yes, they are taking this they understand what this could mean being exposed to a larger audience. And this is something that they're taking very seriously. We're going to be seeing some of the very best Stardom talent on this show. As I lose my voice, Jeremy, talk for a second.
No, I have been able to follow Stardom for only a limited amount, and a lot of the reason we did that last show was for me and for people like me who quite simply don't know where to start with Stardom. There were questions that I had, and there was like, how can I watch this? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to be easy to access? Do I feel like I can jump in there right away and pick up on what's going on? Is there English commentary? No. Or is that going to be a problem for you? No? Okay, good. These are the things that, like, from the basic get-go, the frequently asked questions and things like that, is like making sure that having that accessibility, and now that you know that you can jump in there, finding out who Utami Hayashishita is, and Tam Nakano, and Julia, and Theory. These are names that I didn't know 6 months ago. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, I knew of Julia, but I didn't know Julia. Like, I know who Julia is, and I can say, like, that's not someone you want to mess with. That girl will kill you. Like, that woman will kill you, not that girl.
Fair enough.
Like, I am scared of Julia.
She's terrific, and she had some of the very best matches in that tournament too. And Shuri's fabulous. These are really good workers that we're going to be watching here.
The best way I can put it is like, I'm buying in on this, man. I really am, and everybody should.
And I'm going to mention one other thing as far as tea leaves go. Now, we mentioned Mayu Iwatani, Momo Watanabe, Utami Hayashishita, and Himeka. Those are the four on that side of the bracket. Now, Momo Watanabe and Hayashishita are booked on the crossover event already in mixed tags. So they always
change bookings to veer before.
Yes.
But you could kind of lead yourself to believe that there are directions that you could easily pick out because of that.
Exactly. So that's an interesting thing there. So they're already on it. But so Iwatani is already a favorite for this, just because a match between, say, Kyrie and Mayu Iwatani, would be a great match. And it would be two people that could really carry the mantle. Someone who's known to around the world, and Kyrie, and Iwatani, who's been mostly in Japan right there, is a great wrestler. So that makes sense as a final. Certainly makes more sense than Himeka in there. And it wouldn't surprise me if the tea leaves turned out to be correct in this. The fact that Iwatani wasn't already booked for the crossover event just seems like, we're going to have a big show without Okada on it. But, geez, there's a tournament and the final is going to be on this show and Okada's in the tournament. So this feels like it's going to be Iwatani and Kyrie. Like it just feels like it. But they might throw a curveball. They could. And you can switch those tag matches. You can. It's possible.
I mean, when you do this title, and it's for a brand new IWGP title, their title will never have more value than now. You are setting the threshold of how important and valuable this title is right now. So,
yeah,
you got to put your two biggest stars to fight for this new title. Because if you have a bunch of mid-carders fighting it, you're telling everybody that it's a mid-card title. And if this is going to be an export title where you're going out into the world and defending this as a representative of the best of Stardom, you better have the best of Stardom fighting for it.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to get that. This is a very strong tournament lineup, and again, if Iwatani goes in there, this is somebody that's as good a female worker as there is on earth, and I say that without reservation. And looking at this too, Jeremy, I'm going to be very interested to see what you think. Like Shuri and Julia, especially Julia, just the way she carries herself in the ring and the way she works, would be somebody who's just like, man, would really like to see her against some of the top WWE talent, like Julia against Belair, Julia against Becky. Not going to happen, but just because of the politics of things. But watch her in the way that she works, and it's like, yeah, I could see those matches. I'd pay it. You could take my money off of those, so it'll be fun.
There's so much potential, and they're all so young.
Yeah,
so much gas in the tank is the best way that I can put it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. A lot of my research that I come up with comes off of WrestlingData.com and Cage Match and all that stuff, just looking at results and things. And one of the fun features of WrestlingData.com is that it actually will compute the average age of the people on the card, if they know the dates of birth and all that. And they put the dates of birth on some of the Stardom shows, some they don't know, like there's some like Starlight Kid, you just have the day, you don't have the year, all that stuff, but she's mysterious anyway, the masked wrestler and all that. But the average age of a lot of New Japan shows are like 37, 38 years old, and if you look at,
and they're trending upwards too. They're not getting down there.
No, they're not. Yeah. But if you look at like Stardom, it's rare for somebody to be born in the 20th century.
That's gross and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
It's like looking in the face of my own mortality and just looking at the talent pool coming up at the same time.
I was talking to my girlfriend. There was a woman there that was born in 1988 and one that was born in 1993. And I was just like, oh, these were born either while or before I was in college instead of after I graduated. But that was a rare thing in that tournament. So
you want to pull back the layer a little bit. Where I work, there are people that I work with that were not born until after the year 2000.
Yeah.
And it's just, some of them can now drink after the year 2000.
It's true.
You check an ID on a date of birth, and as long as it says 19,
it's over. Yeah.
Anything else, you're good to go. You don't even have to bother with anything else.
All right. Well, before we get too down in the mouth about our age here, let's go on to Declaration of Power, which is the next big show for New Japan. We're gonna talk more about this crossover event and some of the people who started. There's some interesting dynamics in those mixed tags, but that's not until November 20th, and we got a lot of business to handle before then.
Declaration of matches for Declaration of Power.
And did you see this? There's like a Las Vegas show, a smaller show at Sam's Town Live in Las Vegas on the 8th. It's like a New Japan Strong type of show. Shota Umino taking on QT Marshall, Ren Narita against Juice Robinson, and Ren is about to hop a plane and head over to Declaration of Power, and then Homicide and Wheeler Yuta in an interesting tag team against Carl Anderson and Jay White for that one. So if you're in Vegas, Sam's Town Live on the 8th, you can go and check that one out as those folks prepare to head over to Japan, because on the 10th, it's going to be in Sumo Hall. And
perhaps in 6 to 8 weeks, we will be reviewing that show as part of our Strong recap.
You're just trying to hurt me.
Well, you just give people a taste of what's to come, just like the Stardom crossover mega event. We have Strong coming up that's going to get real strong.
There you go. Declaration of Power at Sumo Hall. Let's go over some of these matches here, Jeremy, because we've got a lineup finally. It took a little while because, again, we've talked about it, the way that Ghetto books, the way New Japan books don't release lineups until the storyline will allow it. Now, obviously, they've known what this lineup is going to be for quite a while, but they couldn't tell us because some of these things hadn't happened yet. So it's starting off with Ren Narita returning from excursion. He's going to be back in New Japan full-time. He's in the 6-man tag. Ren Narita, Robbie Eagles, and David Finlay against Doki, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and El Desperado. Sounds like Narita's going to win his first one.
I think he's going to be coming out to fresh threads. And he'll be hitting a finisher.
Sounds like it, doesn't it? I mean, it feels like either Doki or Kanemaru is going to put him over there. I'd imagine they'll protect Desperado, but I mean, that's a good sign right there. Of course, that's not totally unusual. Master Wato started with a win over Doki there, but also I think he lost pretty early. So we'll see what happens with Narita's and see if he moves farther than Wato did or has so far, and where that's going to line up. It's always fascinating to see where these guys slot in, but looks like they're going to bring him in with a win.
I will say it seems that Finley has cooled off a little bit to be in an opening match in which his partner seems to be the focus of the attention. So hopefully better days ahead for him.
It's one show. We'll see we'll see where that turns out.
Jacoby has a bigger plan ahead for him, I hope.
I thought this was interesting, Jeremy. There are a couple of straight tag team matches, and you don't get this a whole lot in New Japan with like real consistent tag teams. Like most 2-on-2, there's a makeshift tag team in there, but these are teams we're likely or could see in the tag team tournament coming up, wrestling each other in just straight tag matches. So we're going to have Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. against Bad Dude Tito and Shane Haste. I'd imagine that this one could go either way, because I've also kind of postulated that perhaps Taichi and Sonata are headed for a tag team run. And Zack Sabre Jr. seems to be focusing more on singles. But it's hard to imagine Tito and Shane Haste beating him, but it's just a matter of who they really want to have hot going into that tag tournament.
I think this one is a temporary thing. Bad Dude Tito is a jack of all trades, and you can pretty much put him anywhere based off of his skill set so far. But Mikey Nichols is on leave because of a newborn that he has. Yeah. I do not know when he is coming back, but it's entirely possible that Bad Dude Tito is going to be a proxy just for him until the World Tag League.
Okay.
But I'm also kind of curious about the fact that they're pivoting the Mighty Don't Kneel into kind of a little thing with Suzuki-gun right now. And I don't know if that's because of the World Tag League preview or if they have an intention to go in that direction after the Jonah Okada match, because, well, Jonah's got to stay busy somewhere else once they move on from that, depending on win or lose what's going on in that match.
Yeah, it's true. He's going to have to face somebody at Kingdom. So
that's absolutely true.
So after that one, we have this is another what I believe is going to be a little bit of a showcase for Hikuleo again. Master Wato, Ryusuke Taguchi, Hikuleo, and Hiroshi Tanahashi against the House of Torture, Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, Sho, and Dick Togo. So that is, I seems like, again, another way for Hikuleo to shine.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the vibe of the House of Torture's tricks won't work on Hikuleo. He's just too big and unruly for their, like, Dick Togo's garroting, that kind of thing. All those little things that they try and do, like he's too big to put in a cage. They can't choke him. They can't get up there that high. Like, what are you gonna do? And so I feel like we're getting primed for a dude of a giant. What are you trying here? Kind of vibe.
And then we have Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto teaming up to face the Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb. So again, these are just two steady, accomplished tag teams meeting up here in this one. And this one another one that could absolutely go either way.
Yeah, let's give credit to New Japan, and let's give credit to Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, because before the G1, if you told me this match was happening, I kind of feel like O'Khan and Cobb are going to wipe the floor with them. But now, when I see that match, I feel like it's going to be a competitive one, and that Yoshihashi and Goto have stepped up their game somewhat, and it feels like they've elevated a level as a tag, even though in a trios unit, things do not seem to fare well for them.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a rough patch after they had that long run with the never openweight titles, but they are, maybe they're just, their time has passed with those 6-man belts. And then, they had the run, Yoshihashi and Goto, they defeated Dangerous Tekkers at the Tokyo Dome and had a little run with the heavyweight tag team titles. So
they elevated themselves immensely over 2022, which is the whole point. It's like now when you see them put in a match with like the Bruisers of the United Empire, you're not immediately thinking, oh, they're losing this match.
Yeah. And again, it's all a matter of who they want hot going into that tag team tournament. And then we have, this is another group match. This one is basically a preview of Naito and Ospreay for the U.S. title because we're going to have Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Sonata, and Naito against Francesco Akira, TJP, Aaron Henare, and Will Ospreay before we get to the big singles matches. So a little bit of a preview thing. I'm sure Will and Naito will do just enough to make us want a little more and set us up for that singles match later.
Dude, I bet that match is going to be so good.
But it is too. Yes, I think so too. Let's see. We also have a non-title match after this, but a singles one, and it is Taiji Ishimori against Kushida. Kushida is still auditioning for that title match. I would, again, tea leaves here. You're talking about it. This feels like a classic example of earning the title shot by beating the champion here. I mean, they could pull shenanigans where Ishimori drags it out more by him getting holding the tights or something and say, see, he's still not ready. But this feels like Kushida beating Ishimori and setting up that title match, don't you think?
I don't think so. I think they're dragging it out more. I
think they're dragging it out?
I think you work for it. Because it's so traditional that they would do it right now. Like, everything's like, oh, it's like, and I get it. But Kushida feels a little more special than that. Like, you put in a little more effort with the story when you got Kushida going for the title. So maybe there's a little bit of bait and switch. Maybe there's a little more to the story here, but I think there's time to make Kushida have to work a little bit more to get that chance to win the title.
So you think Kushida loses this?
I think it's possible. I think there's enough in the card that if you didn't have Kushida win, then it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see how they get him back there if they do that. But because there's very little doubt in my mind that that's the title match.
The end game is definitely Kushida beating Ishimori.
And probably a kingdom, right? Probably a kingdom.
Yeah. But I feel like there's things that you could do ahead of time because there's still 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and how many shows before then? Yeah. It feels like there's a little more to squeeze out of this before you just get to the match that you were always going to do and just throwing a couple obstacles in the way. If you throw a curveball, like, well, how are they going to get themselves out of this one? It feels like I'll be a little bit more invested in the journey.
I'll postulate something here. If Kushida does lose this match, then they could rebuild it throughout the tag team tournament tour. And we're going to get both at once, the junior and the heavyweight tag team tournament at the same time. But you need other things for the tournament finals night. Mm-hmm. And that could be, once again, Kushida getting a clean win on Ishimori somewhere there and think, okay, now he's going to the Tokyo Dome for it. So yes, there are ways that you could do this match either way and still get to where we think they're going with Ishimori and Kushida. Yeah.
There is entirely a possibility, and they don't do it often, but Ishimori at this kind of juncture with like a disqualification finish or some type of like, I'm getting out of this match kind of thing. I wouldn't discount because they just don't do it so much. They don't do it ever. But that's kind of the Ishimori doesn't think he's deserving of it and comes with some type of shenanigans in that way.
There you go. Now, up next is a match that, quite frankly, I was so relieved when I heard about this, Jeremy. We have the King of Pro Wrestling provisional match, title match between Shingo Takagi and El Fantasma. I worried. Again, most things I worry about never happen anyway, as Tom Petty said. So I was really worried that this would be some goofy-ass stipulation. It's not. It is a regular match between two great professional wrestlers. We're not going to be seeing anything stupid out of this. No one's going to get locked into a dog cage. No one's going to get spanked at the end. No one's going to get... It's Shingo Takagi and El Fantasma in a Who's Your Daddy match. And as it turns out, a Who's Your Daddy match is simply that the loser has to be humiliated by getting on the microphone and telling the winner, you're my daddy. That's what they have to do here. But other than that, they're just going to let El Fantasma and Shingo Takagi have a wrestling match, which is all I wanted. So thank you. I apologize to Gedo for doubting you in the first place. in Gedo we trust. Thankfully, they're not going to saddle these two superb performers with something goofy like that. We're just going to see a good wrestling match.
I thought it might be like an I Quit match, but getting someone to say, "You're my daddy" to end the match is not entirely what I look for out of pro wrestling. So the fact that somebody has to take it on the chin like they're getting their head shaved is fine by me.
Yeah,
it's basically a verbal head shaving.
Yeah, right. That's a perfect way to put it. This is just a thing where, all right, now I've lost. You are the better man, and now I have to eat some crow here in front of everybody. Yeah. That's really what it is with it.
El Fantasma.
You think Fantasma's the one that's going to be saying it?
I think I don't see Shingo Takagi saying "You're my daddy."
Oh man, he's going to lose all that merchandising. But he's been pimping that "Who's Your Daddy" shirt for so long. Kazucho Kata against Jonah. We've talked about this match to death just because we're looking forward to it so damn much, but it's also because the G1 contract and the briefcase is not on the line because Okada has said that the G1 winner should be, shouldn't have to put that up. Yeah, he's free from all that. You should just go straight to it, and that would shouldn't be in a position to lose that. Also gives Kazuchika Okada a chance to lose this match and keep Jonah extraordinarily hot. Honest to God coin flip on this. I would have said that Jonah's going to win, except in the last tour, Okada started doing spots in their preview matches and then talked afterwards in the post-match comments, which means something in New Japan, about how he is putting together slowly, putting together the puzzle on how to beat Jonah. It honestly could go either way. They could want the world title challenger as hot as possible going into Wrestle Kingdom. I wouldn't blame them for that. They could have Jonah beat Okada here because Okada could still go and win the title at Wrestle Kingdom and have the obvious mega match challenger for him right there coming out and challenging him afterwards. It could go either way, and maybe I'm just on the Jonah train a little bit too much on that one. I'm hoping that Jonah actually does win this thing because I just think that would be a fantastic way for Okada to beat Jay White, have him exhausted because it's going to be a great match. Standing there with that title, and then the biggest monster in the company right now comes walking out to challenge him afterwards. I love the idea. I hope it happens, but it's a coin flip. The only thing we know after G1, it's going to be another great match.
So I am worried a little bit that Jonah could suffer from losing to Okada. It is a minor worry at best. I really feel like the momentum is so strong with him that he is almost Teflon, but I want to see him win. And I think because I want to see him win, if he loses, I'll be disappointed. But I don't know if that disappointment will translate to actual damage to his momentum.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we'll see. This one again could go either way. So I'm very curious to see. It's going to be a good match either way. And then the main event is the one that they have set up for through G1 into this one. Tama Tonga, Jay White for the IWGP Championship. Jay White's second title defense. I mean, this is a match we've mentioned in past episodes. Tama Tonga is being elevated by being here. And this is a match Tama Tonga could absolutely lose and not lose any momentum whatsoever as far as his character goes. He has had a great year. He will continue to have a wonderful year going forward. I don't see any way in the world he's winning the IWGP Championship here. Doesn't mean he never will. I don't see it happening here because I think they're going to go into Wrestle Kingdom all guns blazing with Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada on top. But the fact that Tama Tonga is in this main event, and if he goes in there and performs, has a great match with Jay White, I'd imagine he will. He's going to come out of this in much better shape than he was, and I think he's going to do it. I mean, I believe in this dude now. I mean, his performance since he's turned babyface has been extraordinary.
Yeah, Tama Tonga has had an extraordinary 2022.
Yeah.
He has been one of those individuals that I thought I saw his ceiling already in 2021 and before. And I don't know if he's upped his game. I don't know if he's always had this in him and never had the opportunity to go that far. I don't know what it is, but I need to evaluate Tama Tonga in the way that I've seen him before and the way that I'm going to see him after this match. That's the kind of kind of paradigm shift match he's having right now. I mean, Jay White, I have no doubt that Jay White is going to do his part in this match. Jay White is a maestro in the ring. He can perform a symphony on his own. So he's great. Tama Tonga, I am really just hoping that he has a great showing. I do not expect him to win. And, you know, I think if you look at the fact that you don't expect Tama Tonga to win and you expect Okada to win because he's facing Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom, I think it kind of leans more to Jonah winning. Just the way that they book that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty interesting.
There's a lot of great matches on this show, and I think it's going to be a really entertaining day. And again, we'll see what they do as far as an Enoki tribute. So with all this, I'm very looking forward to getting up on Monday and checking this one out. So
I hope it's up on Monday.
I feel like it's going to be on that.
Don't you put that energy on us.
No, I know it. So with that, we have a couple minutes left. Jeremy, is there anything of note to mention from NJPW Strong?
We had the final of the Fighting Spirit Unleashed show from Hollywood, California. This finished up the tapings, and it had Fred Rosser in the main event taking on TJP, but we'll get to that in just 1 second. The opening match was the LA Dojo, Kevin Knight and DKC, the DKC that you saw in New Japan during some of the tours in August and September. They defeated the Stray Dog Army of Bateman and Barrett Brown. These are all 4 guys that have been spending some time in the New Japan Strong tapings in the area. None of them are at main event level. They are all growing and getting better. The right team won.
Okay.
And so it's not worth going out of your way, but if you always watch Strong, you will not be disappointed by it. Move on to Aaron Solo with QT Marshall defeating Che Cabrera. This was a match. It was okay. The finish had Aaron Solo doing a cradle pin with his feet on the ropes that the ref saw but had to act like he didn't, and then he still won.
Okay.
So we're going to move on from that one.
That's usually the referee's fault when that happens, by the way. The referee knows it's a feet on the ropes finish, and it's kind of on the referee to get into a spot where he can realistically count. I've been a wrestling referee, and I've done a lot of different things.
It's just a bad look in general.
Yeah.
Like presentation and professionalism. And
yeah.
even Aaron Solo should know better. Like, he's a guy that's been doing this for so long that it's just like, come on. But and I get the referee blame because the referee should know, but like all parties involved, just feedback for the future. Anything to add to that?
No, I was just saying, like if it's something blatant like that, usually the referee knows the finish. He's supposed to just get into a spot where he can realistically count the pin without seeing the thing. So
you're right.
But anyway, neither here nor there.
No, it's just insight. That's what we talk about here. Just all the insight that we have. And in the main event was Fred Rosser defeating TJP to retain the Strong Openweight title. This was a fine match. I'm not the biggest fan of TJP. I've been somewhat critical about the level of opponents that Fred Rosser has had in this match. This was a fine main event for Strong. My complaint would be the caliber of opponents that Rosser has had in Big Damo, Freddie Ahai, and TJP, and are not great, and they don't lead themselves to an epic title reign, and I hope that changes in the future because Fred Rosser has been working really, really hard to get to this point in his career, and he, like, from the WWE to this point, I'm not the biggest Fred Rosser fan, but I cannot deny the work that this guy has put in to get himself to this level. So he deserves the opportunity to shine with opponents that are not the ones that he had so far. And that's not to say TJP is bad, but when he comes into this match and he is wearing the junior heavyweight New Japan tag titles around his waist and he's challenging for the Strong Openweight title, I don't necessarily feel like that is a main event challenger to this title. I feel like that is leading to a conclusion that is predestined. And that's fine. That's great. It depends on who you can get for these matches and these shows, so on and so forth. But I'm looking for a little bit more. And that's just what I'm going to leave with there. And after Fred Rosser defeated TJP, and it was a fine match. Like, it's not worth going out of your way for like the other one I mentioned earlier. It's a fine main event championship match. Just didn't do anything for me. I never felt like the stakes were elevated to that point. So, Rosser wins, and then we get a run-in by Chris Dickinson. This is going to be interesting because Chris Dickinson is not the most popular person on the internet, and I'm not quite prepared to go into everything going on with Chris Dickinson right now because I don't accurately have the information in front of me to talk about it. But there are some problems with that, and we shall see how that is reflected in the future because I'm not sure that it's been taped yet.
I don't think so.
It
no,
might
I don't
be
think so.
this October 8th. Is it the October 8th show? Or
I think they're doing another taping in October also.
Okay. So it's not there yet. It's not out of the question that it won't happen, but I kind of have the feeling that it will. And if it does, it should be very, very interesting. I'm not sure how we're going to talk about it from an analytical standpoint or from a viewpoint standpoint, and we will navigate that in the future because there are things to be sensitive about. And with that said, I think that's the only strong stuff I have to report.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap things up here. I said we'll get more into the history of Antonio Inoki and his impact in future episodes. And, of course, next time we're going to be talking big about this Declaration of Power show that is coming up Monday on NJPW World. And we should be able to talk about it and see where these storylines are heading into the tag team tournaments, heading in toward Wrestle Kingdom as we get set up for the big show on January 4th. So Declaration of Power next week, talk about a little bit more about Enoki, any other news we're going to cover. So with that in mind, Jeremy, until next time, tell us where we can find you on the internets.
You can find me at Jer Firestone on Twitter, just like the little thing says right over. Oh, there it is. You can find me there. I tweet about wrestling. Sometimes I tweet about comic books, and sometimes I'll get hot at a politician. So if that's your bag, have at it.
All right. And you can also see my Twitter handle right there at StephenConway88. My history website is www.ringsidereplay.com. We're both contributors to Fight Game Media Network. We encourage you to follow that stream both on podcasts, on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and check out the Patreon there. For only $5 a month, you can get a lot of wonderful content that covers the entire world of wrestling, boxing, combat sports, got it all. So don't forget to check that out. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you for watching Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you to everyone that has been following us lately and checking out our show. I don't usually add anything on the end, but I see more people watching, and we're both eternally thankful. So thank you so much, everybody.
Absolutely.